All right, the webinar has now officially started. So that's a good thing. Now I want to go and I want to share screen. I want to share PowerPoint. Okay.
There we go.
All right. All right, now it's starting to come together and look like it's supposed to, I think. All right, good. I think we're starting to get cranked up. We are going to have an ASL person, American Sign Language.
Oh, good. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, and next week we'll have CART.
Good.
So nobody's requested ASL for next week, but they have requested CART. So
What's CART?
you won't believe it. It's communication across real-time translations or something like that, but it's basically closed captioning for the hearing impaired. But so I said to Nancy, so what does CART mean? So we had to Google it and kind of amused. Communications across real-time translation. So had a good conversation with Sue Nicholson last night, CEO of the Monroe Chamber. So she'll be doing this shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to know what their interest level as far as, I mean, how invested are the chambers? And this is for another discussion maybe, but.
Well, I think I need to emphasize that more, like next week's Homa Terrebonne one. I just sent the CEO, resent her the media kit we put together and emphasized how important it was for the local chambers to promote it. And so I think we might be a little bit behind the 8 ball on this one because of it. And so I need to do better next year going forward to make sure that the chambers, I mean, we don't really expect them to do a lot, but if they're going to send out their normal newsletter or emails, you know, make an email announcement, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then we give them the resources that they should be able to use. So that's the way it's supposed to be transpiring.
Because when I was doing my thing a few years ago, I didn't get a lot of buy-in from the chamber around here. And that's why I made that comment. Of course, I wasn't as professional as we are. It was only me doing it, you know. Well,
it's still been, the biggest problem actually has been most of them have committed, except New Orleans, and they've been a pain.
Yeah.
But most of them have committed, but then when you're pressed to let's set a date, that has been very slow. And so kind of they know once they set the date, it's a commitment. And so I've still got, so I think there's only 2 or 3 more that I have to set the dates for. So we need to get you an updated list of upcoming webinars so that you can.
You told me it was coming last week. I never got one.
Well, actually, I ended up with a couple more active ones. And so, yeah, so that's a good thing.
All right. Here they come.
Well, good morning, Sue. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How about you guys?
Doing wonderful.
Good.
I'm Gordon O'Neill and Jeff Arsenault. I don't know if you know Jeff.
Good morning, Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Jeff, and it's a pleasure to meet you via.
Yes, ma'am.
And Gordon, to actually put a face with an email.
There you go. And so I think you see an interpreter coming on. That's Anna. She will be providing ASL services.
Okay.
Yes. Hi,
American.
we'll have one more interpreter as well, so I'll just keep my
Aye.
screen off and mute for right now. Nice to
Okay,
meet you.
that- So she'll be, we have somebody that's requested that. So anytime somebody requests that or what's called CART, which is closed captioning, we provide that for the webinars. And I guess we're expecting Otis, and then beyond that, don't know if you know Otis Marshall from Louisiana Rehabilitation Services.
I have met him previously, yes.
Yeah, very nice guy, great to work with, and gotten to know him over the last week or so, and so he'll be on shortly.
Good people.
So what's going on in your chamber, Sue? Anything out of the ordinary?
Well, yeah, kind of. I'm actually retiring the end of May, so that's a little,
All
little
right.
different. And
Congratulations.
well, thank you. And so we're kind of to the end of hiring someone to be my replacement, and so we'll spend some time kind of shifting gears a little bit, but still moving strong with a number of projects we have going on up here.
Okay.
Good.
Hi,
Andrea, how are you?
Andrea.
So Andrea, are you an interpreter or,
Yes,
okay, good. That's good because I didn't recognize you. I'm going,
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on a webinar. No worries, I didn't mute.
where are ASL interpreters from this week?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay, so am I.
Okay.
I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, so
Oh,
close.
very good.
Vita Springs, Louisiana, while we're at it.
I hope I look okay. The makeup artist was a little quick. I didn't give her much time this morning.
Do you want honest feedback or you want to feel good? You look great, Gordon.
No, Jeff, make me feel good.
You look great, Gordon.
As you can imagine, Jeff is our color commentator. I'm the
Oh, yes.
play-by-play guy, and he does the color commentating. So
That's my secondary career. You gotta put a little personality in these important conversations. I think it carries a lot of weight.
absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
Jeff, Gordon did ask a loaded question.
He did. And when we go offline, he'll get a loaded answer.
All right, I'm kind of a little concerned as to Otis not being showing up yet. So let me check my email, see if there's any panicked emails coming in. Nope, no panicked email, so I'm assuming he'll join us shortly. Okay, everybody is aware that we can, y'all have already done it. Send chats just to the panelists. Just make sure it's when you select down here who you're sending it to, panelists and attendees or panelists. So he's not. All right, I see Otis is on, but he's muted and he's not
Yes,
coming
yes,
in.
good morning, I'm here.
Oh, are you? Okay,
Yes.
good, good. I wasn't seeing you, so I was a little concerned about that.
I don't see him.
Do
Going
you have your video on, Otis? Or
Yes.
are you being shy?
No, I have my video on. I can see everyone.
all right.
All right, well, I don't know why I'm not seeing you, but
I'm not either.
Does anyone
Yeah,
else
dude.
see me?
Yeah, I knew it was me.
what, Jeff, you said he did, you now see
Yeah,
him?
I see him right now.
Maybe I'm not in the,
It was
there you
on the
go.
wrong view. I wasn't viewing it right.
Yep, I've got the view going now. Okay, all right. It's about 2 minutes after, and so why don't we get started? First and foremost, just kind of want to talk about our logo a little bit. And the main thing that I'd talk about is this just looks like an energized professional that is breaking through the barrier of that, the border. And that's exactly what we are talking about here today. How do people that have energy, that have professional and manual skills break through and join the workforce? And that's a big part of what we'll be talking about today. So welcome to How to Recruit, Hire, and Retain people with developmental disabilities. Today we are hosted by the Monroe Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Sue. And the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Gordon O'Neill, and I'm the Working Together campaign coordinator and founder of O'Neill Communications in Marietta, Georgia. Our firm specializes in disability advocacy and disability issues, and have been in the communications side of that work since 2004. We work with 4 or 5 different DD councils across the country. Mr. Arsenault.
Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate everybody for coming today. I'm 48 years old. I've had cerebral palsy my whole life. I'm a college graduate, have an associate degree in business administration. I lived in South Carolina for 20 years, kind of from 25 to 45, where I appreciated a 20-year career. 15 of it was in retail management. The other 5 were in distribution management. Today I'm using my skills in business to create awareness in this specific topic. And I also go into other areas, and I pride myself on really using my background in business to enhance the employment in the DD community. Thank you.
All right, he's being a little bashful. He's also a recipient of the Governor John Bill Edwards 2019 Ken Fentz Memorial Award. And one of his clients happens to be the FBI, but don't let that upset you. Sue, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Sue Nicholson, President and CEO of the Monroe Chamber, and we are a business trade association. So what happens in the workforce world is of keen interest to us. When we go out and visit with our employers, the number one issue they have is finding skilled and qualified employees. So, that we're having this discussion today will be, again, a very keen interest to them. We've almost recovered from our COVID numbers over the year, but there's still some growth that can happen there. So again, thank you for allowing us to co-host this, and welcome to all of our participants.
Thank you. And Otis.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Otis Marshall. I'm the Regional Manager of Louisiana Rehabilitation Services here in Region 8, which covers 11 parishes. I've been with the agency 25 years, worked in just about every capacity, from counselor to specialist to now regional manager. We're an agency within the Workforce Commission that specializes in assisting persons with disabilities to reach their full employment potential. And so we have a counselor or a staff person assigned to work each parish of Northeast Louisiana to advocate for our consumers and to provide job services to the employees of North Louisiana.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Now, just tell everyone that one, you'll get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation at the end, or about 2 hours after it's over. And all of our email contact information is on this slide. You can also reach out to Louisiana Development Disabilities Council at info@laddc.org. So encourage everybody to participate. Everybody's welcome to submit questions via Zoom. And at the end of this, you will receive from SurveyMonkey form to fill out on the evaluation of this webinar. And we encourage everybody, panelists and participants alike, to offer your comments. Did it get too slow in spots? Did it omit information that you thought was vital or needed to be shared? Or any comments you have, because this is our very first one. And so your input on this one will be extremely important. You should have already received in your email 1 hour before the event a curriculum booklet. It's about 28 pages. And this PowerPoint presentation goes right along with that. And I'll from time to time mention this is found on page 19 or something like that. So the PowerPoint and other resources will be available also at the end of the presentation at this address. A couple of comments on curriculum development. We cannot say enough about SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management. They have done extensive work in the area of providing employment for people with developmental and other disabilities. And so if you're not a member and you're doing a lot of HR work, their resources are just very, very valuable. Also would mention, of course, ODEP, which is the Office of Disability Employment in Washington, has an extensive library of information that we relied on to put this together, as well as the Workforce Commission and Louisiana Rehabilitation Services. So we thank all of them for the hard work that they do and information that they make available. Our goal today is really to just give you a step-by-step strategy to successfully recruit, hire, and retain people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in an inclusive and competitive workforce. So I just kind of want to emphasize, when we talk about competitive, if you are looking to hire a person with a disability, it should be at the same competitive rate that a peer would be hired at, hourly wage or whatever. And so that's very important. And as you talk about some of the programs that you can go after, that's one of the requirements. You have to pay a competitive wage. Secondly, it has to be an inclusive employment. So historically, we've had sheltered workshops, work activity centers and things like that, where people with disabilities were actually segregated from other workers. And so that's really not what we're after. Our sweet spot is that competitive, inclusive working environment for people with developmental disabilities. You should look at this as finding access or being able to access unique pool of potential employees with a diversity of skills who are eager and reliable and committed to succeeding in a competitive and integrated workforce. Jeff will have a lot to say about that in just a few moments. Strategic options, we hope that when you've completed this, if you want to do it yourself, you can go do it on your own. You say, okay, I have enough ideas from what we've talked about today. I can start recruiting and hiring based on what I've learned. Or you can introduce yourself to Otis and his fine staff at Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, and they will help you in many, many ways. And we'll talk about that as we go on. Or you can rely on a specialized placement or a consulting person or agency. And Jeff is one of those, but there are many. Y'all, I can't find many in your particular area, but I will talk about some of your options a little bit later. Why would an employer want to go out of their way to start recruiting and hiring people with disabilities? Jeff, you have any ideas on that?
Man, I got a whole lot. You know, I like to put what I talk about in the real time. And you walk into a retail store or a grocery store, and do you feel welcome? Do you feel the enthusiasm? Most of the time you don't. But when the first thing you see is somebody with a disability giving their 110% enthusiasm, what does that do? That brings the energy to the company, the corporation, the culture as a whole. And I'm big on enthusiasm. I think it's got a big impact on. The second biggest thing is morale. What that does to the morale of the staff, of the customers, of the client base, it heightens it. So I'm not here to say that we'll get 100% productivity within 5 days, because that's not reality. But we will make a difference on other lives. Thank you, Gordon.
Just a couple of side comments. I went to Ireland with all my cousins, and one of their sons has an intellectual disability. And he works at a Publix, and lo and behold, the only one that ran into anybody that knew anybody while we were over there was him. And he ran into somebody from Publix, and they had a big old conversation. So it's very funny. I also want to talk about creativity, innovation, and energy. One of the things we'll talk about is talking to your local colleges and high schools and that type of thing. And you can go there and they'll have people that you might want to offer an internship to or whatever. And our firm's been involved in the internship program with IPSI here in Georgia. And we had a gentleman, Deontay, who was a video producer. And so his first creation was not competitive to what our standards might be. And so we kind of had a conversation with him that he had to be a little bit more creative and think beyond what he's been doing. And so he loved milkshakes from Taco Bell, which was right down the street. So he ends up deciding that he'll go down there, and when his guests come in, and he'll buy 2 milkshakes, and his whole set has him and his guests sitting there drinking milkshakes, and he calls it Shaking It Up with Deontay. And so all of a sudden he took a problem, and with his energy and enthusiasm, turned it around and made it into really quite a very, very positive impact on our firm. So
Gordon, can I add something?
sure.
I started a new job about 2 months ago, and I'm working at a garden center. I do a number of things to make ends meet, but I went to him about a month ago, and I asked him for a review of how he thought I would do. And he told me, Jeff, I understand that you have limitations, but the reason why you're here, every single customer that entered the place came to me and had a conversation about you and told me that you're the reason why I come back. And it's not because I'm there because he wants to help me. I'm there because I'm a productive member of the staff. And that's one of the things that people don't realize is we are not there because my boss wants to help me. I'm there for the purpose of making people feel comfortable. And we talked about staying power. In the line on the EBITDA statement that justifies me hiring. Well, when we hire somebody with a disability, and this is the hard truth, we never know if we're gonna get another shot. So A, we're gonna give 150% effort. B, we're not going anywhere because we have a feeling that we might not get another shot. So I'm gonna give this company 110%. And if I don't make it, I don't make it. But if I don't, I can look in the mirror and say, I did the very best that I can do. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you. He lacks in passion. That's what's.
I'm working on that.
So what can you do as an employer? And the most important thing, just kind of open your mind and include people with disabilities in your diversity recruitment goals. And we're going to show you really how to do that there in your local community as we go forward. And you got to ensure your hiring policies and attitudes presume the ability and normalize supports. So as you see, we have an ASL interpreter on this call. We also can provide closed captioning for the hearing impaired. So these are reasonable accommodations that we make, and we need to feel like that's a normalized part of our business operation. We need to assure accessible applications, interviewing process, and facilities. It's very easy to set up discouraging processes that send the message to people with disabilities that their application is not welcomed here. So you need to review all that. Is my application welcoming to people intellectual and developmental disabilities? Is the interviewing process meant to intimidate instead of welcome, and those types of things? And if you make these changes for people with disabilities, you're going to improve your entire HR operation. And so we would encourage you to go back and think about all of that. Customized job descriptions, You know, if the last thing that person at that job is supposed to do is push a 50-pound box to the next person that they've packed, it might be time to think, well, can the person next to him reach over and slide it over? And thus you've customized or redefined a job and its requirements to better accommodate the realities of working with people with disabilities. Job coaching, supported employment. We work with organizations where there's a full-time attendant with somebody with a disability while they do their job. And then there's assistive technologies, and that can range from your glasses right on up to specialized telephones and those types of things for the hearing impaired and what have you. We're going to show you where, but you need to post and promote open positions there in those local markets to reach targeted employees. And I think that's a key strategy, which will give you very specific ideas where you can do that. And then the thing that we chose to do, establish summer internships or on-the-job training and mentoring programs. So it doesn't have to be an immediate marriage and full-time commitment, so you can wade in and get your feet wet and say, you know, this summer internship's really worked out. Let's move it up and go into a full-time employment type program. And partner with your disability-related advocacy organizations and job placement services. And again, we'll talk about who that can be as we go forward. The most important thing, you got to be creative, you got to be flexible, and you got to be willing to lead. And so we encourage all of y'all to take a very positive approach to this. So here's a 4-step process. I mean, we just, we looked at some of the other processes. There are 13 steps, and there's, you know, all those types of things. We just want you to plan the recruitment process. We want you to create the culture. And then we actually want you to take the actions to recruit and hire. And then we want to accommodate and retain those employees. And we've tried to simplify it as best we can. We give you resources to go complicated if you'd like with some of the other programs that are out there, but we'll bring those to your attention. So we're trying to foster a welcoming recruitment and hiring process. That's, as I kind of said earlier, want you to be open and flexible to the talents of all qualified individuals. So you might think as Jeff walks in the door, oh my goodness, can he do that job? Well, right there, that's a barrier you're putting in your own mind. We want you to leap over those and look at abilities, not disabilities. So planning first, I think even before you really get too far down the line, I would start with a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within your organization's workforce. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's identify specific job titles or functions that have higher turnover, a lot of tardiness, don't seem to have people committed to working in that. And you may be looking at the ideal position for a person with a disability. And so you need to start looking for those. And so there's a lot of discussion. Some people would tell me, well, we don't want them all starting as janitors. We don't want them all starting out cleaning bathrooms. We don't want them all starting out, you know, whatever. Jeff brought a different approach. He said, you know, Gordon, I got to start somewhere. We got to start somewhere. And if we start as a bagger at the grocery store and I end up being promoted to a clerk in the produce department and I'm stocking produce, that initial job is very important to me. Jeff, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. You know, I think about public perception and the automatic response of somebody cleaning a bathroom with a disability. Why are they doing that? Well, you know, we all had to start somewhere. So it might be that they're good at that. It might be that that's the only thing they're capable of doing. It might be that they love cleaning bathrooms. That's the reality of the situation. So, I mean, we talk about customization of a job, but that some of us need to need to know that some people enjoy doing what they do best. On the flip side, we need to be recognized. We need to be cognitive of, do they want to do something else? And not shut the door on that. And come up with ways to go to them and say, hey, would you like to do this? And give them that opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Just a couple of comments, planning that preparation process, reevaluate your HR's openness to unsolicited applications from people with developmental disabilities. You've got a job opening, you've got an HR department, and somebody with a disability walks in the door. How's the receptionist react to that? That's a very key element. And so you need to think through those things, and you need to prepare that receptionist to make sure that he or she is open to all people that walk in through that door. What's your recruiting message? Does it encourage people with disabilities to apply? And you need to start kind of at the conclusion of that SWOT analysis. You're going to need to start including senior management, and you're going to, you got to get their buy-in, and you got to make sure that you're not about to start heading down a path that they won't understand. And so involve your senior management and then your supervisory level in developing the new recruiting strategy, adapting the applications, adapting the interview process. What do you mean adapt the interview process? We're going to do it via Zoom, and we're going to offer ASL services. We're going to offer CART services, and we're going to allocate a longer interview process in this case. Again, consider the internships, on-the-job training, which we'll talk about with Louisiana Rehabilitation Services here shortly, mentoring programs, and all of those types of things. Ensure fairness, prevent discrimination in your process. People with developmental disabilities, they don't want your sympathy, maybe a little empathy and a little accommodation, but they aren't there for sympathy. They're there for a job. So let's approach it that way. Job development, identifying those skills of a vacant position, matching potential qualified candidates with the position, and then negotiating that with the supervisor. That idea of, well, why don't we have the person to the left reach over and grab that box that they have to move and slide it across. And that's going to be the way we customize or develop jobs that are very specific for the people with developmental disabilities. Job coaching, LHRS, and you can employ people like Jeff and whomever that actually do those interventions for you, do a lot of the come to work a couple times a week, make sure they get comfortable, check back with them and those types of things. And so whether it's the state or a third party employment consultant, it's a very, very good way to ensure that they're moving forward, moving in the right direction and those types of things. Assistive technology and accommodations, can't say enough, just being open-minded to it. The average cost of an accommodation is less than $500. If it's more than that, there's chances are the state will be reimbursing all or part of those costs through various programs. So don't let assistive technology and accommodations scare you off. It could be a telephone that has special features for the hearing impaired and those types of things. All of this should be commonplace in today's workforce.
And also, one thing about the accommodations real quick, some accommodation just means moving this monitor 2 feet. And that might be an accommodation. So so many times we think finances with the word accommodations, when really all it means is let's get creative. Thank you.
And he has a great example. He had gotten a new job and he was working on a keyboard and he just wasn't very productive. And so he didn't know whether to complain or what. And so he ends up, his boss comes in and he says, would you watch me work? And so she did, and saw that his keyboard was sliding around. And with what do you say, 50 cents worth of Velcro, she Velcroed it down to the desk. It stopped sliding around. That's an accommodation, and a smart accommodation.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Louisiana Rehabilitative Services for Business. Most people think of them as providing services to citizens, and that's a big part of what they do, but they also serve you, the business, and that's might be your first place that you might look at. They have dedicated rehabilitation employment development specialists. Otis has them in its office. He calls them Reds. And they offer a pool of qualified applicants. These are people ready to go to work, and they can refer them out to you for a potential job just from existing what do you call them? Ready to go, right, Otis?
Yes, job ready applicants, meaning they're ready to go to work.
So you can start right there with Otis and his fine organization. And they can provide you job analysis. So when you talk to him, they'll help you analyze your needs. They can also provide training, individual job coaching. I was talking about a little bit a few minutes ago, and follow-up services. I think it's been proven that people with developmental disabilities that get that ongoing support from various different ways succeed more and succeed better. And so I think they provide all of those services. They do offer an on-the-job training for their VR clients. So this is a time-limited salary reimbursement for permanent, full or part-time positions, paying a competitive wage. So if you're paying that individual the same that you're paying the peer group, which is what you should be doing, you can then qualify for OJT, and they will reimburse you time and a half on that individual. Key point here, they can be full or part-time. So it's not all, does not require full-time employment. It does require permanent employment, thus meaning that at the end of the salary reimbursement period, you can expect to continue having that position in place and having them on board. And that salary reimbursement is 90 days. Is that right, Otis?
Yeah, correct. It's 90 days of whatever wage the employer pays the participant. They can seek reimbursement for that wage times a half for up to 90 days. Very
good.
Yes.
They also, if you have to go through engineering services for barrier removal or work site modifications, they have programs that you can apply for to get some or all of it reimbursed. I think it has a maximum of about $10,750 or something like that. But your Reds contact there in his office would walk you through that.
With the barrier removals and accommodations, assistive technology, that 10,000 is kind of more of I guess a point that we try not to go over. But with our agency, it's if there's a need, we make exceptions all the time to whatever the consumer needs the cost to be able to maintain that employment. So that the 10,000 is not a hard cap. We just have to get a little bit more documentation and get a couple more steps in the approval process to go over the 10,000.
All right, good to know. So I think, and there's not from, and so you could correct me if I'm wrong, I did not see a lot of other options besides LHRS in that community, in that area. There may be, but I could not track them down. I'll talk about some options, but for the most part, I think Louisiana Rehabilitation Services will be one of your first stops. I think there's also work opportunity tax credits and some other things. Again, the REDS consultant will help you consider whether you want to pursue those. So then it's about building culture. Senior management support is critical to creating a welcoming process and an inclusive work environment. This includes, opening up your recruitment goals. This includes adopting policies that provide workplace flexibility and accommodations for applicants and employees. So you might have to actually provide accommodations during the application process. It requires a visible and public commitment to recruit, hire, and retain and advance. And I think Jeff was talking about that earlier, qualified individuals with disabilities. And so I would really, you want them to take a public stand, if you will. You can go to some of the things I might refer you to a little later. They have pledges that, you can sign a pledge and those types of things. But it is saying that our goal is to include more people with disabilities in our workforce. Again, presuming ability, normalizing supports, those are just keys that they have to buy into. And so you got to build that coalition. The coalition is first on the senior management level, then the supervisory level. And a supervisor is really key. Any disability employment initiative begins with the SWOT that I talked about. So when you go in and you talk to your senior management and you talk to your supervisors, if you share the numbers and the turnover rates and the unfilled positions, the specifics of why you're heading in this direction, you'll start seeing more and more support for where you're going. Some of the work that SHRM has done, they survey all their members and they have proven that turnover rates, absenteeism, and tardiness all improves as you bring people with disabilities onto your workforce. So that's something that they have very specific statistics about, and I found extremely interesting. So instead of being an anecdotal type argument, it's real. And then just create a profile of the workers in your service area. So if you need technicians and those types of things, where do they come from? And if you need janitors, where do they come from? And those types of things, and start thinking along the lines of how you fill all those positions separately and where people with developmental disabilities might fit in. Jeff, you want to talk about training for a minute?
I do. This is I think this is a huge opportunity for corporate, what's going on today, especially as it deals with people with disability. We talked about empathy versus sympathy. Empathy carries a lot of weight. Gordon talked about the individual walking up to the receptionist. What was the automatic response? Well, that's the first introduction to a person with a disability. How does that tie in with training? We talk about senior management. If CEO says, I want to hire people with disability, boom, let's make it happen. Call LRS, get Otis involved, get the chamber involved, great. But who's going to train that individual? And what kind of empathy do they have? And do they know about this initiative? Are they on board with this initiative? Because guess what? I need a little empathy. And I'm not saying I want somebody to take me by the hand and hug me and tell me it's going to be all right. I want somebody who, if I forget what they told me and it's a common sense thing, I don't need somebody who's going to be not patient with me. Because the minute I feel like, I'll go back to Gordon's example, walking into the office, the minute that I feel reluctancy or uncomfortability, it's hard for me to come back from that. So it's really important for me to get the right trainer, the individual that's on board with helping Jeff get to where they need to be. And let's incentivize it. Let's make it fun. The staff wants incentives. Let's make it a goal of our corporate trainer to get Jeff running a register in so much time. Make it an excitement on the staff. Very, very critical. And I think the training word carries a lot of weight for all people, not only with disabilities, but it certainly rises to another level when you talk about staff buying, because the CEO's not going to be the one at the register trying to get Jeff to a level where he needs to be to sustain employment. Thanks a lot.
Yep. So recruiting and hiring. Recruiting, you're going to have to use some unusual strategies. So first of all, creativity, flexibility, commitment to ensuring everybody, including people with disabilities, that's part of the process. But then how can you reach them? Well, it begins with the message. So write your ads, your posters, or other communications in what's called people first language. And if you've never heard of it, if you go into your curriculum booklet, golly, I'm trying to think what page number that's on, but there is a link that takes you to people first language, and it goes on for multiple pages, but it's using language that the cynics would call politically correct, but really it's just empathetic and thought through as to what's the best way to approach people with disabilities. So I don't, that's people with disabilities. You hear me say that a lot. Well, that's people first language. I would never introduce Jeff. Well, he's got cerebral palsy. Let me introduce you to him. I mean, he's Jeff first. And so it's that type of thing. Also in your booklet, one of the addendums shows examples of it. And so you can take a look at all that. Again, assure the application and interview process are accessible and appropriate and reasonable accommodations are being made. So I think today more and more Zoom is being used for interviews and those types of things. And so, having ASL person on there, having CART, which is the, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Got you back.
And so those are the types of things that I think you just need to be thinking through, making sure everybody is welcoming to the idea. Just think through this. If somebody, so Sue's getting ready to retire, if her replacement said, well, I require a service animal to be with me when I'm away from home. is your organization willing to, accommodate that? And how would you react to that? So don't let surprises like that surprise you. You should be prepared for them, should have studied through them and considered how that might work. And some people have full-time on-site direct service professionals that accommodate them in their job. And so would you accommodate that? How would that impact your workforce? Those types of things. So these are the types of things that I think you need to be thinking about as you start down this path. So then how do you reach people with developmental disabilities? How do you reach out and start getting them to apply for your job? Well, you can certainly go to Louisiana Rehabilitative Services and their RED specialist. I think that's step number one, probably for everyone. Louisiana State Independent Living Council, and this is a council dedicated to providing means to allow people with disabilities and other problems to live independently. That's financially, and that's getting out of group homes and those types of things that have isolated people over the years. Now, and New Horizons, which is really a preferred provider organization and works with Northeast Delta Human Services Authority. All of these, some of these items 2 and 3 have on their website that they offer employment services. They're not as engaged in it as Louisiana Rehabilitation Services. And so you might have to press them as to who you ought to be talking to in the organization. The receptionist, it's not necessarily their strength. A couple of things you can do though. So Families Helping Families of Northeast Louisiana. If you have a job description that you think you'd like to post, and you say, I want to get this in the hands of people with disabilities, you can approach them and say, would you send this out to all the people on your email list? And if they have somebody they'd like to apply, follow the instructions. There's other advocacy groups. LOCAN is the advocacy group for the Developmental Disabilities Council. And you might contact that individual. He or she is listed on the their website, and you can say, you probably have an email list of 50 people. Could you send this out to those 50 people or so? And so you're really starting to reach into organizations that have the contacts already, and then you're not wasting all that exposure on people that can't help you. Go to your local high school. Go to your local high school. They have special education programs. Talk to the faculty, talk to anybody you can about how can I bring a young person out of who's in a junior, a senior in high school, has a disability. I can tell you the Chick-fil-A I go into here in Atlanta always has somebody out taking care of the front, and they're out of the high schools and those types of things with disabilities. Great place to start. Another great place is your area colleges and university. They have career centers, and they have, y'all have about 6 colleges and universities in Louisiana with what's called a post-secondary education program. And I do list those in your curriculum, and you can go straight to them, and they'll start offering internships or people ready to graduate that you might want to bring on board and those types of things. So you got to be, it's not necessarily your normal stuff. You need to go in and be a little bit more creative. Go to your employees. Everybody knows somebody with a child or knows them personally, someone that with a disability. And think about it. So, and I can tell you all through church, and I was active in Kiwanis and those types of things. I knew people that had family members with disabilities. And so really just talk it up and go out and make sure everybody knows what you're looking to accomplish. If you've got a little cafe on this town square and you just think, golly, I need, well, here's a great example. So we did a program like this in North Carolina. We had Dunkin' Donuts, somebody that came in, kind of sat across, was being kind of quiet for a while. And then when it was done, she came up to me and she said, I have 17 Dunkin' Donuts, and I could put a person in each and every one of them tomorrow morning. Yeah, talk about, so what are they going to be doing there? They're going to make sure the donuts are getting from the back to the front and being properly stocked and those types of things. So you can have posters that say people with disabilities are encouraged to apply. And so I would encourage you to really look at it differently, look in different ways to communicate. And I think families to families, families helping families would be a very good way. Any advocacy group, think of course, Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, they have them ready to work. So I think I went through that. There's also job-related disability-related job boards, websites, social media, etc. And most particularly, if it's particularly on a national level, foundabilitycorps.org, it probably has the best stuff. And you can also go to the resource section of the booklet and you'll see, and we'll go over some loads here in a second. So there's a number of organizations working on the national level. In Atlanta, not Atlanta, in New Orleans and some of the bigger cities, there's ARC, which is very much involved in job placement and that type of stuff. So you need to check into ARC called the ARC, and they do much of the same work, do a lot of the job coaching beyond the norm. And so you can look at things like that as well. I think we've been through most of this. Couple of things, will you allow a candidate to apply via tape or require information by phone, those types of things. If a parent wants to help complete the application online, is that appropriate or not? But when you're dealing with people with disabilities, you also have to understand limited job histories or spotty employment histories. It's difficult for them to find the jobs, and it's difficult for them to continue on and keep a consistent employment history. That's what they want to do, but it's very difficult. So ensure all your walkways, sidewalks are easily accessible. Kind of in that interview process. So if Jeff comes in, you're going to pretty well recognize that he has a disability. And so what do? Well, if it's obvious to you, you can say with your disability, how do you see yourself functioning in this job? And that would be appropriate. But only ask job-related questions that pertain to the job function. And so that's very important to keep it focused on that job, focused on their ability. And they may reveal a disability to you during an interview. And so if they admit, say, an intellectual disability of sorts, could range anywhere from depression to, having been diagnosed ADD or whatever, autism, those types of things, then you can pursue that line of questioning and you can ask them, under that circumstance, how do you see yourself performing in this job? And do you need to see any needs for special accommodations, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to be forthright and they need to be forthright in that initial interview.
And it's on, you mind if I say something good?
I never mind that.
All right. I'll give you 2 examples of something I did that got me a job. I interviewed with a company 4 years ago, and they were saying, oh, wow, we got a great idea. You can come in every Sunday and hang the new ad, put the tags on the shelf. And I said, that won't work. And they said, why? Because you're going to come in Monday morning and every sign's going to be crooked. Well, we got to laugh and it was all great. But what that did was it opened up the door for us to talk about my assets and my weaknesses. I own my disability, and in an interview, it's important for me to disclose what's going on, because that's going to give me credibility where the employee is concerned. 2 years later, my boss knew what I did outside of work in the DD community. And she said, can I tell you something? That comment that you made, that's what got you the job. Because you disclosed your weaknesses and that established credibility. One more that happened this week, and I learned I'm a big advocate of owning what I can do to change. I need to do my part. Well, I had an interview out of town Wednesday, and they offered me an interview. And a year ago, I had an interview on Zoom out of town, and they were not aware of my disability. So this time I learned from that situation. I said, what can I do to disclose it and open up that door? So when I accepted the interview, I said, hey, I would really like to know you to know that I do have CP. Because in today's world, Zoom is part of life. And we need to learn to accommodate that. So in the interview, the employer flat out said, I can't say I'm comfortable or uncomfortable, but I would like you to help me get more comfortable with you. I don't know the outcome yet, but I feel real good about that because it brought on an energy that was unheard of in the interview process. And it really gives the employer a comfort zone that, hey, he's okay with who he is. Why shouldn't I? So I know I was long-winded, but it's something really, really critical to what we're talking about.
Very good, sir. I've just made, comments about accommodations and assistive technologies throughout, and just needs to be on top of your mind as you proceed down this path. I think if you look in your booklet, you'll find a whole piece on on accommodations and assistive technology. It's very, very common. A lot of the universities throughout, and we're near Georgia Tech, have entire departments dedicated to developing this kind of technology. I've seen spoons that, for those that have their hand shakes uncontrollably, they will, the spoon just stays stable. Their hand shakes, but the spoon stays stable so they can eat soup and those types of things. So they do some amazing work. They provide ASL services and those types of things. So, and they're in Louisiana, y'all have a whole group dedicated to the same type of work. So just be aware that's something you need to be doing. Retaining employees, first and foremost, well-planned, well-executed interview and onboarding process is step number one. And I think we can all probably improve our interviewing and onboarding processes for everybody. And so while you're thinking about this, how can you improve those? Work with the supervisors who are easily accessible. The supervisor has to be easily accessible to people with developmental disabilities. They have to bring a supportive and understanding ear to the task. They need to be willing to provide consistent feedback, positive reinforcements, and intervene when they need to. And for instance, those that opt to use a third party to do that, that's why that's done often, that they actually have them do that intervention work, then something's not working, or those types of things. Ensure the accommodations remain in place. And, you know, they really have to stay attuned to changes in the individual's living arrangements or personal family relationships, and just be aware if something's changing in their work habits, it's probably an external force, and they should be aware of that. Transportation, you should always ask, do you have reliable transportation, and see how they're intending to get to work. Transportation is a major hurdle to people with developmental disabilities. You and I think nothing of going outside, getting in their car or walking to the bus stop. For somebody with cerebral palsy to walk to a quarter of a mile to a bus stop, that's a task. And so these are things you do need to be thinking about. And safety, you need to keep safety top of mind. It's an everyday issue. There's specifics on it, making sure most buildings now today have fire alarm systems that have lights flashing for people who are hearing impaired. Then they have the buzzers and all that type of thing. So most of those have now been reinstalled and redesigned. If it's an older building, newer stuff is put in pretty well state of the art. Evacuation plans, you need to make sure that you have in place an effective evacuation plan, especially if you have somebody in a wheelchair or somebody that is heavily dependent on crutches or some other support. How are they going to get out of the building in a timely fashion? And so that's all something you need to make sure you're aware of. Fire drills, probably not too far after they are on board. You might run a fire drill just to make sure that your plan is in place and everybody understands the plan and it can be executed. All right, let's see. Remaining last thoughts, people with developmental disabilities have a high incident of sexual abuse. They have co-workers, friends, and family that will take advantage of them financially. So all of a sudden they got money in their pockets, and they're riding to work with somebody, and all of a sudden they're paying an outrageous amount of money for the ride each day or something like that. And I think supervisors should be attuned to that type of stuff. As with all new hires, some work out well and some do not. I talk about Deontay and what a great hire he was for us. He went on to work for CNN after leaving our firm. Not all my interns have worked out as well. And in fact, one of them, she didn't like the idea of having to commute out to our offices. We're kind of in the suburbs. Deontay never questioned an hour bus ride out to our offices. And she kind of didn't want to do that. And then the staff down at the university backed her up, and you're going, now, wait a minute, so if they're willing to go into the workforce, they need to be willing to go into the workforce. So just something to be aware of. Be creative, keep an open mind. Your future hiring decisions can have a life-changing impact on someone's life. These people often are isolated. They don't have friends. They live maybe in a group home. If they're unemployed, they watch TV all day. They gain weight. They become obese. Those are the things that are the negatives when they're not employed. And so if you really study what's going on in Louisiana, they're heading towards employment first, which is the philosophy that the best way for us to serve a person with a disability is to get them working. And it will give them purpose in life. It will increase their friends. They'll start having friends. They'll have social lives, and they'll break out of that isolation. So all of that's very, very important to us. So just a couple of key resources, askearn.org. They've got all sorts of great resources that you can look at. ODEP, which is the Office of Disability Employment Policy, has guides on internships, programs. So while I'm giving you a lot to think about, these are resources that you can really study if you feel like you need some more. Strategies for small businesses, again, Ask Earn. They really have a lot to offer. Workforce recruitment program connects employers with pre-screened, highly motivated college students. That's a national board. And if you look on page 25 of the curriculum book, you'll find a whole bunch of other resources that we are aware of and would recommend you look at and consider if you see a value in them. So in conclusion, I hope we gave you some step-by-step strategies to successfully recruit, hire, and retain people with disabilities. And we hope that we all start working towards a more inclusive workforce. We hope that you soon are enjoying employees who truly love their jobs, are reliable, productive, and dedicated to their continued improvement. These people will inspire other employees, they'll inspire customers, and that your business will benefit from having them on board. This is a great opportunity to access it's a new pool of talent and provide life-changing employment opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. So embrace your creativity, become a leader in your organization, your industry, and your area. And with that, I have not seen any posted chats or questions. Is that correct? But if you have questions, feel free to submit them. Any concluding remarks from any of our panelists? Jeff, you have no concluding remark?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. Has been tremendous. A few things that really made an impact on me is, let's open it. Let's go outside the box. Let's think about things we haven't seen before. When I see Jeff Arsenault, instead of going, what can he do? Look at Jeff and look at the whole picture before we make conclusions. Let me meet Jeff. Let me get to know who Jeff is. Cause you ever think about who we don't meet, who we see, and why don't we meet them? Fear is the word. And that needs to go away. I want that to go away. And I'm talking to myself with all of this. So when I say go outside the box, what about doing a walk around interview? That way I can see what he's got. I think about the disability of autism and how detailed they are. They are some of the most detailed individuals I've ever known. I think about inventory control. I think about finding needles in haystacks. The average associate or team member is not that detailed. And if they are, they're the CEO or right under the CEO. So what about having an hourly team member who's as detailed and as friendly as individuals with autism. And I got examples of that all day long. And one more in conclusion, why is it that we need jobs? Well, that's a no-brainer. I need to support me and my family. It's not about going to work to have something to do. Guess what? I got bills to pay, and I want to have a family, and I want to be able to support my family. So, to me, yeah, I take it seriously, and I'm very passionate about it. You know why? It's who I am. It's not what I do. It's who I am. So if anybody needs anything, don't hesitate to call me. And we'll spend an hour talking about people with disabilities because it's a discussion that people are reluctant to talk about. Open up that door. Let's walk through. Let's walk through it together. So I want to thank each and every one of y'all for being on this phone call.
Very good. Otis, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you. And I think this PowerPoint will definitely be beneficial, especially if I can get a copy of it. I can share with my Reds, and she can share with employees as she meets and with some of the resources and so forth. I think it'll definitely be a good tool for us in the future to use.
Okay, great. We'll post it and we'll make darn sure you have it.
Okay, thank you.
And Sue, thank you so much. We appreciate all your work and congratulations on your soon to be retired.
Well, thank you, Gordon, and thank you for hosting this. It really was a wealth of information, and we certainly appreciate it.
All right, very good. With no questions on the board, we will conclude. Thank y'all so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
All right. Jeff, you want to hang around a minute?
Sure will.
So how'd you think that went?
I mean, we made it in an hour. So is your goal to go at least 2 hours? Because I found myself, I thought I was talking too much, but according to the time frame, maybe I need to take more of a role.
Well, I'm now, so I really was saying we didn't know when we first started how long it would be.
Okay.
And so when we did the booklet, there's a lot of stuff in the booklet we don't even talk about on the slides. And
Alright.
so, that was just kind of a decision that we made that we didn't want to get too tedious with it. Matter of fact, I think I can combine 2 slides in the hiring process. I think they're a little bit redundant, but other than that, I don't expect any major changes to PowerPoint. So for the most part, I think you're, when you chime in, I think is great. And so I really thought what was nice is that I didn't feel pressured to rush through them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get so fixated on rushing to make sure I get it done in an hour or something. And so I think we're going to say an hour and 15 minutes, which we actually did about an hour and 10. And I think that's fine. And then I think Otis is right. Once we distribute the PowerPoints, that's all good.
And here's an idea. And I don't know, I'm real passionate about Q&A. How can we get them to come to us with questions?
Right. right.
You know, I really think that's when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't think, so I've already started changing some things we do. So this morning I sent an email to Homa Terrebonne and reminded her, we gave her that media package and it has all these emails and stuff that they can be sending out. And I don't think Sue had we provided it to her, but I don't think she ever connected what this is and what I ought to be doing. So we need to kind of coach these chambers along a little bit more. But I'm really been so aggravated with some of them and not setting a date. You know, I'm still working on stuff that I should have had these dates set a month and a half ago. But they just won't call you back, won't respond to emails, you know, so those types of things. So, but your earlier statement about the engagement of the chamber, I think is very, very important. And we got to really stress that.
Well, there's a piece of me that, because I was watching her body language, and she seemed like she was in, but you know, that's what we need. We
Right.
need these non-disability boards to get in,
Yeah,
and that's where we're gonna implement change.
good point.
Sherm, I didn't realize Sherm had such an impact on people with disabilities, because I spoke for them 6 months ago, and I didn't think they had a curriculum. Is that a national, Sherm? Or
Well, so I'll tell you, they really don't have a curriculum. They have a bunch of separate papers. And so one might be just hiring people with intellectual disabilities or managing people with intellectually disabilities. So they'll have a paper on that. So if you gather it all together, it's a pretty significant amount of information that they've done. So, you know, if you're some HR professional and you're having problems with managing somebody with intellectual disability, they've got something for you. And it's more appropriate than a lot of the ODEP and that type of stuff, you know. So yeah.
but the problem is they're not bringing it to real life. It seems like, and I'm not talking bad about them,
Right.
it seems like these folks are doing this to take care of what they need to do for the ADA.
Right.
See they're not doing it for the purpose of hiring people with disabilities.
Right.
Because if they were, they would know who LRS was. They
Right.
would know about Workforce Commission. So kind of what we do is bring it to life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But so we're trying to henceforth get SHRM more involved. As I said, Sue kind of threw this date at me early, and so we'll do better with SHRM, hopefully, and see how it goes. But I thought
it went great.
yeah, I thought the presentation was worthwhile. Other than I felt like I got a little redundant on slides 25 and 26, so I'll edit those down. But yeah, I think everything that you did, and I know just, you know, sometimes you'll jump in one place and the next time you don't, and you'll jump in somewhere else. So you just jump in wherever you are comfortable at.
Yeah,
Clay,
I
and
mean, it's different every time, and I hope that's okay.
absolutely. So, and I think it was casual enough. I felt comfortable enough that, you know, I didn't feel like I was in a rush to get it done or anything. Felt like I was engaging more people in it. I think it was smart to have everybody introduce themselves, you know, break it up and that type of stuff. So
What we're doing, Gordon, is and we could intertwine this in our presentation. what we're doing is reality.
Right,
You had to get buy-in. You had to believe that I know what I'm talking about.
right.
Therefore, you developed you're comfortable with what I'm doing. So
Absolutely.
what we're doing is what we're training people to do.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't think you realize that because you do it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable for
Right.
both of us.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. So that's good. That's good.
So next Thursday, right?
Yes, next Thursday.
All right. And that's all we got next week, according to me.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And then I think the next one is May 10th, if I remember right.
Yep.
So,
I think so.
So then I added one in June 22nd. Added one for July 13th. And I'll try and get the last 2 or 3 scheduled here shortly. And we're
So
going
how
to
many are we doing? 9, right? Or 10?
10 supposedly. We might combine Jefferson and New Orleans.
All right.
New Orleans Chamber has been an absolute nightmare. They just have been just rude.
Really?
Yeah. Well, they say they don't have a workforce committee. I was really surprised. The CEO responded to me and said, well, we're a different chamber. Basically, all we do is have networking events, meaning they're party planners,
Right.
getting everybody together for a cocktail. Now, I can't understand that in New Orleans, but perhaps. So, so then I told Mara Lee that, and she says, well, try this lady. So she gave me somebody else's name. Well, she didn't know her. She just picked another name out of the staff. And so I approached her. And by the end of the email conversation where I'm trying to get on the phone with her, she got pretty damn snippy and just said, we don't have a workforce committee and we don't have an interest in doing this. And you can yell at me twice and I'm done. So anyway,
Yeah.
but I have 29,000 email addresses in New Orleans of businesses.
Right.
So I can still promote it. And what's happening, we're getting about 15% open rates on our emails, and we're getting about 4% click-throughs. And then we're getting the registrations haven't been what I wanted so far, but the next 2 are looking up already. So.
All right. Well, good.
All right. Well, you have a great weekend, my man.
All right. You too, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, how'd you think it